Hello, this is Clarence Moye with the Words Daily here with Jake Lacy, Emmy nominee for The White Lotus Season 1, one of my favorite shows of all time, who this year brings us Apples Never Fall on Peacock and the Kane Mutiny Court Martial on Showtime. Jake, it's fantastic to talk to you again.
Hey, same. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with a very tongue-in-cheek question. This is not meant as an insult in the slightest, but I know I've talked to you before, and I think you'll be good with it.
Yeah,
So
we'll be all right.
you take on a variety of roles, obviously, but this role in particular, Apples Never Fall, and my one of my favorite performances of yours in The White Lotus, they're kind of preppy douchebags. Are you ever worried about being typecast as being a preppy douchebag?
I feel like if I do one more in the next like 18
Mhm.
months, people are going to be like, is this what you're doing now? Is this just like entitled pricks is like your card now? Um, so we'll see. We'll see what jobs come my way.
Yeah,
Um, like obviously like in both of those instances, I'm responding to the material and they're so
sure.
fun. Like there are different worlds and there one's a comedy and one's a drama and um but trying in both cases to find like the sadness and the hurt that's like in each of those guys and neither one is dealing with it flawlessly,
Right.
but also like neither am I. You know what I mean? It's like the stuff I've got in my life, I'm not always like squeaky clean on how I'm going about dealing with feelings or fears or whatever. So uh I hope people aren't going like, oh, this guy just does douchebags now,
No,
you
no,
know?
no, no. And
But
to be fair, they
yeah.
are different douchebags. They're on the different douchebag scale, right? Because Shane is just irredeemable, right? I mean, he's just, and it must have been so much fun to play. But your character in Apples Never Fall, he is entitled rich prick, of course, but there's a deep sadness in there that comes from that interaction with his father. It's totally, I think it's totally different.
I feel like that, like in some alternate universe, like those two would not be able to stand each other. Like they both would be like, this fucking guy. But yes, the to me you know, the joy of Shane is like I that guy's not going to change. That guy is exactly that guy through kids, through divorce, through a second marriage, through business failures and successes. Like I get the sense that that's going to be him forever.
Yeah.
And Troy is, I think, the humanity in Melanie's scripts and in the story is that he's I don't know, the extremes aren't reality. That like
Mhm.
he's not as bad a guy as he thinks he is, and he doesn't have to be as good as he thinks he needs to be. Like
Yeah.
it's actually like, okay, you're a person in pain and you haven't dealt with it very successfully, and there's room to grow, and at the end, I think there's like you see in Troy a willingness to change both in his behavior, outwardly in the way he deals with his ex-wife and um, giving over their rights to these embryos that they had frozen um and then also like an easing in the way that the very just the last moments of the show are like an easing of the way that he's with his family, his siblings, himself. Like there's a little less need to constantly be proving himself to everyone and himself
Yeah.
at the same time.
Well, I mean, Troy is a human. He is flawed. And
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's what's great about the character. That's what's great about the show is it has these people who are in this scenario, but they react to it in a very human way. And they don't go
Right.
and Anyway, we're not going to talk about the White Lotus, but and I'm not going to ask you the question I'm dying to ask you, which I'm sure everybody else has already asked you. But
Oh,
we'll
go
just
for it, man. Let's do
no.
get in there. I don't care.
I want no. I mean, I know you can't answer this, but I want Shane to be back checking into another White Lotus.
Dude, so do I. I was like, when we were doing like press for it when it came out and people were like, "You gonna go back? Is he gonna be back?" And I was like, man, my honest, like, look, I'd love to go back as a regular on that show. I adore Mike and the whole world he creates. But I also think it would be equally funny to just have me and Molly Shannon like deep background just berating some other employee at that resort. Like that's it.
Mhm.
Like you just see them complaining at a table as you pan by, just so like they're still out there.
Yeah,
He's still the
or like
victim, even though he's killed a man. And like,
or
you
like a
know,
bottle episode where he's dealing with the inevitable breakup of his marriage and she takes him to a White Lotus to help him recuperate because that's something that she would do.
you know, Mike had said like he had this idea. This was a couple of years ago, but he's like, I just want to do like a Richard Linklater style, like 30-minute Alexandra on a yacht in the Caribbean, speaking to another
Mhm.
wealthy couple on this yacht. And you think it's going to lead somewhere. You think there'll be a reveal of infidelity or of drugs and instead it's just two rich couples and the banality of being rich. And that's it. And then you just like pull back from the boat. It's like that is a dark, funny thing to do to be like, there's actually no story here. That's what's so funny. There is nothing happening.
Film it up, submit it
We can dream.
for a
Yeah.
short film for the Academy Awards. That's because that would win. um, Obviously, these two projects are huge ensembles, and you seem to respond really
Yeah.
well to working in ensembles. What it is about the energy of that ensemble cast that feeds you.
I think it's exciting when there's each of, a great a piece that's written great for an ensemble, if that makes sense, is that you have dynamics in each relationship. Each one of those offers something else or is an avenue to explore, a person to play with, and to sort of build, I don't know, a whole narrative around, which um yeah, it would be fun to be like, the guy in like a spy thriller or like that is its own beast, and I'd love to do it. But it really is fun um to create these different dynamics with different characters and then to put those into a triangulation or to have six of those people around the same table and to see how that all kind of meshes together. Um, I like building that, like I
Yeah,
just I like working with other actors. It's the best,
yeah.
you know?
I just recently spoke with Sam, who plays Troy's father, Stan Delaney, and he
Yeah.
had these marvelous complimentary things to say about how fascinated he was about your process and working with you. He was very complimentary, so
Oh,
I wanted to
wow.
pass that along. But what was it like? You two have a very challenging scene where there's a lot of history there and there's some explosions and there's some physical aspects to it and then there's hurt feelings that are played out. What was it like playing those scenes with him?
There was, is this in the kitchen where there's sort of like a lot is kind of being, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, revealed or kind of, I don't know, purged in a way. But um, it's the first time in this series, I think, that you see Roy say anything back to Stan. Like you know, if I've said anything back to him, it's pretty innocuous or indirect and a multitude of things have led to kind of this moment in both of our separate lives and in this relationship we have together. And and there was a whole other big chunk in there that I asked Melanie if we could take out because the when Stan says to Troy, essentially calls him out on the infidelity to his wife, it just like in reading it as Jake on behalf of Troy or whatever weird kind of agreement you've made with yourself and I don't know this character, I was like that he just snaps. I was like, there's no more, like that's it. Like that's the final thing is to go like, I built a family outside of this family, and the amount of shame I have around screwing that up. And for the guy who is foundational to why I'm screwed up to lay that at my feet is just like too much.
Right.
And so that like for the first time in 20 years, Troy like charges his dad, and uh uh my brother has to like step in. Um and so that was my feeling. I came into that going like, can we do these things? Like, is that all right with other people? How do you guys feel about it? And then some compromise on how that blocking works and what those moments are. And Sam is like, he plays these kind of gruff, uh, inaccessible men, and is so thoughtful and intelligent and talented and warm and welcoming and collaborative. And it's just funny that, people in Australia would be like, "Ooh, Sam, cool, yeah," like from viewing his work, but like you hang with him and work with him, and he's just lovely, lovely, lovely. And so working together, he was, I clearly talk a bit, and he, would say less, but every point that he made was like spot on, where he'd say like, "What do you think about that line?" And I'd be like, "I think it's this or that," or and he'd be like, "It was a little too whatever, this or that," and then we like go ask if we could switch it or move it or change it, and he was like always right. It's just like years of experience and being thoughtful and really taking in the world and asking the right questions. I felt like he always had a bead on what it needed to be, and
Mhm.
and at the same time was more than willing to take an adjustment. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
someone that experienced and talented having a clarity of what they want this to be. And then also a director saying, I honestly think it's this over here. And him going, okay, I'll try that out. Can we do one of each? You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that way you've got it. I just want to feel like I've contributed the thing that I feel it is. And then if you've got this other version that you end up using, we'll do that. Great. So this is it's not rare, but it really was a very special experience. The cast, like across the board, collaborative and talented and warm and like and just there to do it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, yeah, it was really special. Yeah, he's a big part of that.
Yeah, it was interesting too because he said this role scared him a little bit because he had never played an alpha male like that before. He had never played somebody that was
Hmm.
that intense and that gruff, and that's and that's. But that I thought that was really interesting that it impacted him that way.
Yeah, it was very yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he's just lovely and very good in the show.
Yeah.
Like he certainly never said I feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? No, I don't know. He wasn't on set saying like that seemed alpha male to you. I don't know. I'm not sure if that was alpha male enough. You know what I mean? Like it never maybe he went home and was like, oh, what am I doing on set? Fuck. But no, I just adore him. Just adore him.
when I was talking to him, it was like everything I could do to not ask him to go grab a pair of sunglasses and take them off and stare at dinosaurs off in the distance. I told my son
He's
I was
the
talking to him, and he was just like,
it's like when we were shooting in Australia, he, splits his time working and, in Sydney, and then he's really at his place up in New Zealand. And the number of people who were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm an actor. What are you working on?" And tell them, and they'd be like, "Oh, the Sam Neill project." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, Sam and I, that he plays my dad." And they'd be like, I saw him. I saw him walking around." I'd be like, "Yeah, we're working together." And they'd be like, "I saw him though. I mean, I saw him getting ice cream." You're like, "Yeah, no, we play father and son. I mean, no, I understand. We're colleagues in this." And like it couldn't. They just people are like so enthused for Sam, particularly like Australians who love him and have taken him on as their own. And I don't know, it was very endearing that people were like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. Sam, though, what's he like?"
so, all right, here's an either or question. Which is more
Right.
challenging to you? One, um, the emotional scenes with Sam, or maybe the revelation that you're cheating on your boss's, your friend boss's
Yeah, yeah.
wife, cheating with his wife, or the tennis scenes, the physicality of the
Oh.
tennis scenes, which is more challenging for you?
Oh, the emotional stuff for sure. I'm like, yeah, give me that racket, man. Let me run around all day.
Do you play in real life?
Like I started to after this. Yeah,
Okay.
not well, but I always wanted I had this idea of like country club life and
Mhm.
I don't know, wanted to be a I didn't know what it was and yet wanted to be a part of it, of the fantasy I'd created of being like, well, surely you must feel this way when you've arrived and you can whatever kind of external, this is like the Jake and Troy like meeting, right? Is where
Right.
like I also have a false belief that if I have enough money and uh, belong to a certain thing that my outsides will change and my insides will feel the same. And it just isn't true. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I can take up whatever hobby I want and wear whatever clothes I want and like it's an inside job. So, yes, I always wanted to play tennis and sort of be part of that world. And then we started playing with these incredible pros and trainers, and I really loved it. So that I've like continued on. I have two little kids, and we go out to the court and hit, and they're into it. So like, yeah, it's one of the gifts of this job is getting to work with interesting people and create things, and but also like, you know, Annette had just come off doing NIAD. She's like, I was doing incredible swimming training. I never thought I would be doing that, and now I seek out a pool every time I travel for work so that I can like continue to swim or learning tennis or a film where you need to know a little bit of Italian and you go, "Oh, actually, I want to pursue this." Like it just offers you sometimes these opportunities to explore the world that I might not otherwise do. It's really cool.
Yeah. I did ask Sam at one point. I said, "How would you ever catch Stan playing pickleball?" And he looks up at me and he goes, "Stan would hate pickleball."
Never,
Yeah.
never. Stan and Troy have that in common. Never pickleball.
Yeah. Um,
NPB.
uh, just a couple more questions, and
Yeah.
last one about apples. How did this role stretch you as an actor?
It's hard to, I guess, create this like to try to create a reservoir of disappointment and loneliness, and then to not ever look at it, to just focus on all the things that are being piled on top to not have to look at it. And yet, keep that as best as possible alive underneath a lot of these interactions. Um, because that's what he's dealing with, you know. Don Shadforth, who directed the middle three episodes, um, had this lovely note uh, in a scene with myself and my girlfriend slash boss's wife. And, you know, I guess as an actor, you are taught and think about like the moment before. He's like, where have I come from? And, you know, what's that done or what's just before this or whatever. And her note in this scene regarding like my girlfriend is that she was like, you know, your mom's gone and your dad doesn't love you. You know, like
Yeah.
that's your moment before for 35 years, right? Like that moment is the moment all the time. And other things happen, but also your mom is gone and your dad doesn't love you. And you go, fuck, that's right. Like everything that, whether he just went to the grocery store or worked out or signed a new, you know, business or whatever it is, there's also this like just immutable pain that he has. And so I guess that was, I don't know about stretch, but like that's new.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to do that in that
It's a
regard.
stretch.
Um, and yeah, I'd say that.
All right. Last question for you.
Yeah.
You have another project this year. You were in the film The Kane Martini Court Martial, Kane Mutiny
Yes.
Court Martial. Wow.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you?
It was incredible. It was incredible. I got to work with Jason Clark, who I've admired for years in so many projects. I feel like he's this, I don't know, kind of, I just love him. I think he's fantastic. And and then to work with William Friedkin on what was, you know, sadly his last film, um, man, like I talk to people who have been doing this, you know, 20 years longer than myself, or people have been doing it 40 years longer. And, you know, and they're like, the business has changed a little, man, for better and for worse. You know what I mean? Like, certainly for better in a lot of ways, but also the feeling of like you ran away to the circus and
Mm-hmm.
it's a bunch of weirdos making a thing. It all feels pretty corporate in a lot of ways, you know, like, um, and there's no way to really experience that because I don't have a time machine. I can't go back and go, oh, this is what they're talking about. You know, I just go, oh, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But to get to work with someone who's been making movies for 60 years, the guy who directed The French Connection, and be like, you want to know what it was like back in the day? This is it. This is a dude who knows how he wants to shoot it, what he wants to shoot, and like this is his crew, and he says what he wants, and this is his film, you know. And I don't know. It sounds as if I'm like I don't know saying that in lieu of being like he was rough. And it's like it's not that at all. It's truly what I mean. Like this is a guy who just like had a vision, was like I'm going to make this movie, get on board, and uh, and it changed how I feel about I don't know being on set. He's like you're going to get one or two takes. That's it. If we don't have it after one or two takes, like either you weren't prepared or I should have cast someone else because I don't want to have to give you that many notes to get you there. Someone else inherently would have just gotten to that place because that's who they are, you know? And it can get a little lazy when you go, we're going to shoot this wide 10 times, and we're going to come in and we're going to get a two shot of you and a two shot of you, and each of those will be six takes, and then we'll do your close up, and then we'll do their close up. But you go, oh man, we've been shooting the same thing for 2 days. This is crazy. You know, like, and sometimes that's necessary. It's just the nature of the beast. And sometimes you go, maybe I should put it this way. it may be necessary for the reality of the production, but it also means that actors, or maybe just myself, can kind of like lay back into that and go, we'll find it. And you go, what kind of bullshit's that? We're gonna find it. You go home and do your work and show up and get ready to rip. Like that's kind of what I dig. You know what I mean? Like I just
Yeah.
made this movie in India. We shot for 18 days, right? Like a full movie in 18 days. Even for an indie, they're like, please do 21. And the director was like, I don't need it, man. And you just go like, let's rip. Let's go. Like, let's get in there and do it, man. It really is so invigorating. And I think for me, it gets me out of my head, out of this, like, should I do it that way? Should I do it this way? And gets me into the moment, gets me into going like, we got two shots at this. It's you and me. Let's go. Let's do it. And you really have to rely on the person you're acting with, on the director, on the cam ops, on the DP. Like everybody's got to show up because you're going to get one or two shots, whether that's by design because Billy Friedkin is like, I'm not doing 5 takes of this, or because the budget is like, you get 2 takes. We don't have the money
Right.
for 6 takes of this, But yeah, I mean it that movie, working on that movie, working with Billy and Jason, like that really changed my mentality around my place in this, what I like.
That's
I
fantastic.
love it.
Well, Jake, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time. Great
Same.
performances, both of them. And
Thanks, man.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the time. Thank you.
No worries. Take care.